Hey everybody, happy Wednesday, good morning. Today I'm excited to share with you the next episode in my sort of journey into learning Mandarin Chinese. For those of you who are new here or haven't seen my series, I've been documenting myself going from literally zero with Mandarin, hopefully all the way in the future to being an incredibly advanced, proficient speaker. So Mandarin will be my 9th language, and my primary interest when it comes to learning foreign languages is reaching really high levels. I love to strive to get to a point where I really sort of understand the cultural nuances and sort of be able to navigate the cultural fabric of a language and the sort of landscape that exists around speaking it. So that involves things like regional accents or differences between people that speak this language in different regions or different countries, knowing things like idioms or knowing what's the most appropriate or natural thing to say in different scenarios. I love when I can speak to people and when they just know in the first few minutes that, I have taken the time and effort to understand not just the words they're saying, but also who they are. And so it's been so much fun documenting that journey in Mandarin, and honestly, it's really now starting to get interesting. If you saw my last Mandarin update, I'll post a link to that in the description and also on the screen here. I'm really now starting to get to the point where I really feel like I'm becoming able to speak Mandarin, It's a long journey, and I do think that the journey from zero to very basic fluency is actually considerably shorter than going from that very basic fluency to that really advanced proficiency that I like to strive for. But that second part of the journey is so much more interesting. Now, I think the first part is really fun, it's very enjoyable, but in terms of, oh my God, I'm fascinated. And I just think when I get to that stage where I'm able to comfortably converse and get through conversations and really dig into what makes, in this case, Mandarin speakers, what makes them who they are, what makes Chinese people Chinese, what makes them who they are, what makes Taiwanese people who they are, it gets so much fun, and I feel like I'm on the edge of that portion of the journey. And so this week on Friday, I'm gonna be posting my very first proper Mandarin Chinese conversation. So as I mentioned in that previous video, I have recently finally started having some communication with people in Chinese. So typically I do mostly input-based learning. I do a lot of output, but it's mostly controlled output. I'm gonna make a video soon on this idea of what I call sort of controlled output versus sort of spontaneous or uncontrolled. For me, controlled output is when I'm repeating things. So I'm not necessarily spontaneously producing my own, thoughts and stuff, but I'm doing a ton of repetition. I'm constantly repeating sentences and phrases out loud. So I do a lot of that. But yeah, I don't do a lot of sort of spontaneous, just like trying to speak and express myself until I reach a certain level of proficiency. And so I have recently begun going to my new favorite place is Taiwan Bento here in Oakland where I live, and the people there are just so lovely and they're so willing to practice with me. And so I've been able to get some communication that really does feel like conversation, but I've still never had a proper Chinese only conversation with another person. And so for me, these are really special moments when learning a language, and it doesn't happen very often. Even for experienced polyglots, you don't get this moment very many times. You don't just get that first ever conversation in a new language too many times. And so one of the reasons why I love documenting myself doing all these things is I get to capture that moment and share it with you. And that's gonna happen this Friday. So I'm gonna be talking with Jake again. If you remember Jake, he is the CEO of Scritter, which is an awesome company that has an app for learning Chinese characters in the context of Japanese and Chinese. I'll do a full product review of their app soon, but Jake is an awesome guy. We're good friends, and he also has a ton of experience as a Chinese or Mandarin teacher He's lived in Taiwan, did a master's degree there. He's lived in Beijing. He's worked as a Chinese teacher. So we're actually going to be having my very first Chinese-only conversation this Friday. I'm pretty nervous about it. I wanted to share a few things I'm doing to prepare for that experience. I would love to hear from all of you, what are the things that you like to do to prepare for that first conversation, or maybe just the first conversations that you have. In my case, I always like to use the islands technique. So there are a few variations of this, but the general idea behind islands is that you create these little pockets of subject matter, of vocabulary, of language that you're fairly comfortable, or at least more comfortable, speaking about. So let's say you create an island around food. Maybe you love food. Maybe you already have experience eating the cuisine of a certain culture, and so it comes more naturally to you. Whatever it is, you learn not just vocabulary, but you learn how to say things like your favorite food, what you like to eat, maybe some restaurants in the area. I don't know. The point is that you develop this little pocket of language that you're fairly comfortable speaking about. And the idea is that once you go into a conversation, if the discussion starts to get too far away and you start to become a bit lost, maybe you're a bit uncomfortable, you can sort of steer the conversation back to your islands, right? So optimally, you would have several of these islands. So you would perhaps create a few different islands. You'd, have these little pockets, these subjects that you learn to talk about confidently. And that way, you have a higher chance of being able to sort of naturally navigate or steer a conversation towards one of them. Obviously, if you only have one island and it's about food and cuisine, and we're suddenly discussing, politics, and you're like, whoa, how about that teriyaki chicken that I had yesterday? Yes, it's probably not going to flow terribly well in that conversation. But perhaps if you had another island, which was more, general society things and talking about, the culture of a particular place, I don't know, then that might be a more comfortable or a more natural segue to keep you engaged and comfortable in the conversation. So I haven't really done much of this in Mandarin yet. I've mostly just been learning as much as I can and getting tons of exposure to all kinds of different topics. So this week I'm sort of thinking about that. And I know that Jake has lived in Taiwan. He lived there for a very long time. He studied there. I think he has a very deep relationship with his own experiences and memories in Taiwan. And just the other day, I finally started using the Easy Languages series. I've discussed that on this channel before. It's one of my favorite resources, in part because they just have so many languages. So I'll leave a link to their YouTube channel in the description. And they have a series for Easy Chinese. And so I was watching the second episode, which was all about Taiwan, and it was basically something like, Taiwan人喜不喜欢台湾? So do Taiwanese people like Taiwan? And so they were asking people, do you like Taiwan? And if so, what do you like about it, right? And so I got the chance to learn a bunch of words and also learn some new information about Taiwan and the things that it seems many Taiwanese people like about their homeland. And so I'm kind of thinking, strategically, that's gonna be one of my little islands. I think that maybe if I start to get a bit uncomfortable, maybe if I start to trip over my words, or, anything can happen. And especially, I'm gonna be recording this on video, which is very nerve-wracking. So I think if I reach that point, then I may lean on that island to maybe ask Jake some questions about his experiences in Taiwan, basically very similar questions to what I got exposed to in that episode of Easy Mandarin Chinese. So that's one thing I'm doing. And I'm also I'm trying my best to, practice, expressing my thoughts, 我觉得 I think this, or I feel like this, talking about experiences, if I'm gonna be asking Jake his experiences living in Taiwan or in China, I could also totally sort of segue into the fact that I know Jake lived in Beijing as well. Then I should probably also be comfortable speaking about my past experiences and, be able to expect things he might say. So we're practicing speaking things I've done. For example, 我没有去过北京，我没有去过 中国. Yeah, these are just a few things I'm doing to prepare. I don't really typically have such a big strategy going into these first conversations. This is one of the nice things about doing so much input-based learning. I think it does allow you to develop quite a generic skill set in speaking the language. But yeah, it is quite nerve-wracking, and again, especially putting it on film. So I hope you're gonna enjoy that video. Definitely make sure to come back here on Friday to see how that goes. Maybe it's gonna be a disaster. I have no idea. Maybe I'm gonna fail. I think the goal is gonna be, can we have a conversation for 10 minutes? That feels like a very sort of healthy amount of time, especially given the, YouTube context. But who knows, maybe I'm gonna completely fail and fall on my face after like 2 minutes or less. I have no idea. I've never done this before. But like I said, feel free to share your thoughts and tips if you want in the comments, and maybe I will even learn some new things from some of you and I'll try those out. But that's all for today. I would love to hear about your own experiences, the first time you spoke in a new language to a person, that first successful conversation. I'm just, so I'm really nervous. This is gonna be a little scary, but we'll see how it goes. So again, if you didn't see it already, please do check out my previous video where I gave that really exciting update speaking in Mandarin, so you can see exactly where my skills were like a week or two ago, and then come back on Friday to see where they are now. Okay, everybody, happy Wednesday, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you back here on Friday.